Hello, today's date is the 9th of April, and welcome back to my video series. Today I'll be going through the specifics of my weekly workout routine and my current progress after doing this for just over 3 months. I'd like to start off by saying that I'm certainly no pro when it comes to fitness. For the most part, I don't know exactly why particular exercises work certain muscles and how this would benefit my climbing. I also don't know the potential long and short-term effects of what I'm doing. That being said, I make sure to justify my own choices by doing some research and taking advice from professionals, or at least those with more experience than myself. Also, as I am not currently aiming to climb at an elite level, I think there is a reasonable margin for error in how I decide to train. I wouldn't want to undermine my efforts, but I'm trying to be realistic. In the grand scheme of things, my goal of climbing an 8A boulder isn't exactly pushing the boundaries of the sport. In today's world, the internet is a wonderful tool for doing quick research. There is a YouTube video, a forum post, and a blog on seemingly every conceivable topic. If this wasn't the case, my training would probably be unfocused and ineffective. While it's a reasonably young sport to the mainstream, there are so many developments currently being made in the collective knowledge base regarding training specifically for climbing. This is evident in the fact that it is making an Olympic debut for the Tokyo Games. As I said before, I'm not an elite athlete, but the amount of content out there certainly makes my life a lot easier. I think two of the best resources for climbing training at the moment are the YouTube channels of Dave MacLeod and Lattice Training, among some others. These two sources have influenced the majority of my current home workouts. There are so many other resources that have inspired me along this path, many of which I'll link in the description. For now, as real climbing is mostly out of the question, this is where my headspace is at. As I detailed in my previous video, my 2021 weekly routine started as follows. Hangboarding on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, calisthenics interval training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and yoga on Fridays, with the weekends being my rest days due to my current job. I am now 3 months in, and this schedule has changed somewhat to something that I think is more manageable. The main reason for this is I work nights on weekends between 7 PM and 5:30 AM. Unfortunately, this takes a toll on my potential productivity on Mondays, and I found I was unreliable in getting the hangboarding done, especially in these winter months where the sun would only set a few hours after I woke up. By putting 2 workouts on Tuesdays, I think this is more consistent long term. Also, given that hangboarding and interval training are contrasting, I am not overly fatigued for Wednesday. By sacrificing Mondays as a third rest day in order to realign my sleep schedule, I can retain some normality for the rest of the week. Another major change is I've increased my yoga to 3 shorter sessions per week. In the early weeks, I was merely experimenting with ideas to find out what parts of my body needed the most work. In doing this, I found my hamstrings to be quite a limiting factor, so I'm trying to focus on this for now. After modifications, this is my current routine. Okay, let's talk about hangboarding then. If memory serves me correctly, I got my hangboard, a Beastmaker 1000, for Christmas in 2019. Admittedly, I wasn't really mature enough in the sport to use this correctly, but it was useful for experimenting and undoubtedly helped me know what I know now. With the lockdowns that came in early 2020, I've been thinking about this more as a way of maintaining strength at the very least. Then, as I gave myself some New Year's goals in 2021, my hangboard use increased somewhat. During this time, if I had still been climbing on the wall, I would not be hangboarding anywhere near as much. For most of 2020, I looked to the PDF documents provided by Beastmaker for training inspiration. These were repeated sessions with purely hanging and rest periods. After a while, I moved to the more advanced workouts and eventually added pull-up sets to failure at the end of my sessions. Unfortunately, through the year, I was relatively inconsistent with my routine, as gyms had periods of opening and closure, not to mention I wasn't particularly focused with my training. Towards the end of the year, however, I decided to change things up and create my new routine as a substitute for my climbing sessions. Taking into account everything I have learned while making the workout varied and including a decent warm-up, my hangboard routine is as follows. I'll start off with a warm-up that gradually increases in intensity before starting sets of hangs, pull-ups and hanging crunches. In order, this is cardio of jogging, air punches with finger extensions and jump pull-ups, followed by a set of 10 hanging shoulder shrugs. Then I do some 15-second hangs, moving through 5 different grip types: 4-finger pocket, 4-finger mid-crimp, front 3-finger pocket, middle and ring 2-finger pocket, and finally a 3-finger drag. After this, I finish the warm-up with some controlled pull-up falls. This can be up to 20 minutes, and by this point I shall be feeling warm. The majority of my upper body is ready for the workout. The rest is fairly straightforward. I'll set a 20-minute timer which I split into 4 5-minute chunks. For each 5-minute set, on the first minute I'll do a 15-second half crimp on the smallest edge and then rest around 45 seconds. On the second minute I'll do a set of 9 pull-ups on the 4-finger pocket and then rest again for around 45 seconds. Finally, on the third minute I'll do a set of 10 hanging crunches, then rest for the remainder of that 5-minute chunk, around 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Over the 20 minutes I repeat this 4 times and finish with a final 15-second hang on the small edge. As of March the 4th, 2021, this is my current progress. In the early days of this routine, I would only do 8 pull-ups and hanging crunches, yet I would frequently power out in the later sets. Also, during the max hangs, I would often place my feet gently on the floor to minimize the load. Thankfully, as my form and strength improve, I am making consistent progress in this area. Hopefully, within the next months, I can work towards 10 reps for both pull-ups and crunches while maintaining the hard hangs. I think that once I reach this goal, it will be time to think about how I can increase the difficulty further. Some ideas I've had are moving from hanging crunches to leg raises and through to front levers, introducing smaller edges for the pull-ups, and introducing one-arm work during the max hangs. There was also some potential of using something like a weight vest, but I am keen to keep things as simple as possible for now. Out of the 23 potential sessions so far this year, I've only completed 13 with 1 week as a dedicated rest. Since my hangboard is outside, the weather has been a factor in this. I'm not too concerned though, as this doesn't seem to be limiting progress too much, and I will only become more consistent as spring approaches with drier weather. One thing I have noticed is that my hangboard frame is not the most rigid structure. Due to this, I think my workouts are made harder, as when I am loading the hangboard, the whole thing tilts slightly, maybe adding a few degrees of angle to the holds. Also, in hanging crunches and pull-ups, I have to be especially careful to avoid too much swinging. Sometimes, if the conditions aren't the best, I have to mediate my workout slightly by using more positive edges for the max hangs, or placing my feet slightly on the ground. Overall, I think this is like a handicap and seems to promote even better form on my part to compensate, so it's not too much of a worry. Perhaps when I can climb on more solid surfaces, these will feel extra stable by comparison. The current stand I'm using was a DIY project with a few unfortunate miscalculations with the bracings. When possible, I do aim to make a second version with improved rigidity, but for now I can make do. Following along, a little simpler, are my calisthenics and yoga sessions. With calisthenics on Tuesdays and Thursdays, this aims to target the whole body and serves partially as antagonist training for my hangboard routines, where my hangboard sessions are upper body focused with more pulling muscles being used. These calisthenic sessions include more lower body and core exercises that attempt to target pushing muscles. The general structure of these workouts is cardio warm-up, followed by 5 sets of 5 30-second intervals, followed by a 10-minute break, followed by another 5 sets of 5 30-second intervals. The warm-up is a quick 2 minutes of 4 30-second intervals alternating with jogging and finger extension punches. Then the exercises in this workout in order are push-ups, side squat variations, sit-ups, and a plank, with the 5th interval in each set being a 30-second rest. Overall, the total workout time is 35 minutes including the rest period. Since this is really easy to fit into my daily routine and isn't dependent on conditions, I haven't missed a session since the start of the year and have seen good progress. In the beginning, this workout was quite difficult and I would quickly power out, especially on the push-ups and sit-ups, barely managing to complete 8 reps when I got to the last set. Now that I'm 3 months in, across the whole workout, I can consistently do 15 to 20 push-ups, 12 to 15 sit-ups, and 12 to 15 squats per set, with further room to improve. Taking into account the time of each interval, I think the upper limit of this workout will be 25 reps for push-ups and 15 reps for sit-ups and squats. At the moment, I usually will rest slightly in the up position of the push-ups, as I am not able to do the exercise continuously for 30 seconds. This is the main area left to improve before changing the types of exercise I use to increase the difficulty. Ways of increasing the difficulty would be to use harder variations of each exercise or to use a weight vest. Things like eliminating limbs in certain exercises would be a good place to start, for example, one-legged push-ups or planks and using pistol squats, while alternating the legs between reps, or potentially changing the exercises to something completely different in the interest of variety might be a good thing. Now, the yoga has been quite inconsistent, and I'm not sure it will be something I continue to do once the gyms are back open. I have used a few different follow-along type videos, but I'm not currently motivated by good progress, and don't know exactly what I would need to do differently to change this. I will continue to do stretching within my warm-ups and post-workouts, but likely no dedicated sessions during the week. A trend I have noticed in the past is I have had slow progress in mobility as a result of climbing, so potentially this is something to view more long-term since I am relatively flexible already. I haven't actually ever had an issue with not being flexible enough for a particular boulder problem, but hoped I could train this further to use it to my advantage. I will keep this in mind for the future. Despite the circumstances, I have been able to do some climbing this year, but it's been pretty unconventional. Being inspired by some lockdown urban climbing covered by the Boyz on the YouTube, I took up a small project. In the driveway next to my house, there is a brick wall where the grout is quite receded. Because of this, in between most of the bricks, there are thin gaps just big enough to fit my fingers, and there are several chips lower down, which can be used for footholds. After some sessions scoping out what was actually possible and placing markers for hands and feet, I have a rough line which currently goes about halfway across the wall. That being said, the resulting climb is uncomfortable, awkward, and quite hard where a very specific beta is needed. Honestly, this is my preferred style. I typically much prefer slab-type problems which require great technique combined with a specific beta to complete, instead of more overhanging routes which are a weakness of mine, usually a lot more dependent on raw strength. Here is a clip of the first section of the climb. As you can see, my body is quite bunched up because of the high feet. However, because of the small, flat handholds, I have to stay close to the wall to avoid falling away and slipping off. These two factors mean that I basically have to be constantly frogging in a semi-squat position with my legs. This is in an effort to keep my hips and chest as close to the wall as possible. I can only assume the squats I have been doing help with this. Even though it's not the best, any climbing at the moment is a good thing. Speaking of which, shortly after the release of this video, climbing gyms will reopen in the UK. That's on April 12th. When this happens, my weekly routine will be heavily modified, and I aim to do another video covering this, looking at the way I try to incorporate some ideas of movement on the wall, not just looking at strength and power on a hangboard. But for the first week or two, I aim to just have some sessions in the gym to get used to my new strength and to see how climbing feels after so long off the wall. Also, in the next few weeks, I will be trying to complete my home brick wall project, but this is quite hard, and I'm not necessarily going to focus on this while I'm back in the gym. Once again, if you are watching this, I hope you enjoyed the video and are interested to hear my story. As well as scripting, recording, and editing these videos, all the music and art for that matter was also created by me. By any chance, if you're interested in my music or VR in particular, then check out my other project Allbar VR on Facebook and YouTube. While I'd gain some satisfaction from subscribers, likes and comments, this video series is ultimately a personal endeavour, so let me know what you think, or don't. I'll still be training hard and making these videos every month or so. My one true aim while I have the time is to use this opportunity to grow and exit the pandemic as a better person. To some extent, I have already achieved this goal. Let's call this an experiment on how hard I can truly push myself. Now I wish you well and leave you with myself to play the video out.